The story of Ramayana. The birth of four princes. The great King Dashrath of Ayodhya was the grandson of Raghu of the Suryavansh, the greatest of emperors, who gave all that belonged to him in charity except the clothes on his body. Dashratha was a noble and wise king as his grandfather. He possessed all the virtues of his ancestors and was kind, generous and strong. King Dashrath's empire, with his capital city Ayodhya, was vast and lush with forests and rivers and stretched right up to the river Ganga. His kingdom was prosperous. His subjects did not lack anything and were happy to be ruled by a noble king such as Dashrath. The king had more wealth than Kuber and Indra put together, and he was as learned as a Maharishi. His people prospered under his kind and generous rule. Many a sage made his hermitage in the kingdom of King Dashratha, and he was also to be pious and God-fearing. He prayed to the sun god Surya every day and was very contented. The only regret in the king's heart was that he did not have any children of his own. Not one of his three queens, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi, had borne him any children, and this saddened him very much. He wanted a son who would carry on the glorious Raghu tradition and rule his kingdom just as wisely and well as himself. So, he conferred with his rishis and ministers, and they decided to invite sage Rishi Shringa to perform a yajna to beget a child. All the preparations were done, and as the powerful yajna was being performed in Ayodhya, the Devas in heaven were discussing King Dashrath's plight. The Devas went to Lord Vishnu and humbly requested him to be born to Dashrath as four sons. So Lord Vishnu sent a Deva down to Ayodhya, who emerged from the flames of the holy fire, handed over a golden pot of kheer to the noble king Dashrath and said, "The Devs have heard your prayers, and Lord Vishnu is pleased with your sacrifice. He has granted you this pot of kheer for your wives. Let them partake of it, and they will surely bear you four sons." The king was overjoyed, and he carried the golden pot of kheer to his palace. The joy of his three queens knew no bounds when they heard this news. They were excited at the prospect of having children. Now Kaushalya was the eldest, and so the king gave her half of the kheer. The other half was divided among the younger queens Sumitra and Kaikeyi. Since Kaikeyi was the last to receive the kheer, she has enraged and she started cursing and complaining. Lord Shankar's eagle swooped down from the heaven, snatched off the kheer that was in Kaikeyi's hand, and flew away to humiliate her for her lack of praise. On a mountain named Anjan, far away, sat a devotee of Lord Shankar named Anjani, who had been in meditation for years. The eagle dropped the kheer into the open hands of Anjani and flew away. Kaikeyi was furious at having lost her share of kheer. To pacify her, the other two queens shared their kheer with her. Soon enough, by the grace of Lord Vishnu, the three queens became pregnant. There was a joy like no other in the entire kingdom. The king truly had no regrets now. He at once set out to meet his guru, the noble sage Vasishtha. He bowed down to touch the feet of his guru and get his blessings and tell him the happy news. Vasishtha was pleased, and he advised the king that during the time the three queens were pregnant, he should fulfill all their wishes without any hesitation and keep them happy. The king was only too pleased to carry out the advice of his guru and set out to serve his wives and attended to them. Everyone in the kingdom waited for the day that the four princes would be born. The three queens spent all their time in the palace and its lush gardens in anticipation of the great day. The face of the king lit up with joy as he walked with his pregnant wives in the garden of the palace. It was noon on 7th day of the month of Chaitra, and the sun was high in the sky. On this auspicious day, the three queens gave birth to their four sons. Kaushalya, the eldest queen of King Dashrath, gave birth to Rama. Kekai to Bharat and Sumitra, to the twins Lakshman and Shatrughan. The whole kingdom joined them in a celebration as never before witnessed. There was much joy on the faces of three queens as they saw their sons moving their tiny hands and legs and opening their eyes for the first time. The four princes cried and laughed lustily, making their parents glad. Not only was the king joyous, he was also relieved to now have four sons. With happiness in his heart, he looked at the children as they lay in their mother's lap. The king vowed to give them the best education and training and make them into strapping lads and princes. They knew that the future of his dynasty and his kingdom lay in these tiny hands. When 13 days had passed since the birth of four princes, King Dashrath invited his guru, the noble sage Vasishtha, to perform a ceremony to name the newborn prince. The sage was overjoyed to perform the task, and he once again reminded himself that these were no ordinary princes. He knew that they were Lord Vishnu, who had been reincarnated as the four sons of Dashrath. Sage Vasishtha made elaborate and grand preparations for the naming ceremony. Flowers were brought from all over the kingdom. The generous king gave away gold and jewels to his subjects. At the ceremony, Sage Vasishtha sat in the middle while the other rishis surrounded him. The king and his wives, with their children, sat close to the sage, taking each baby into his arms. The sage blessed him and whispered his name into his ear. Kaushalya's son was named Ram, the beginner of joy and peace. Kekai's son, Bharat, the supporter of the universe, and Sumitra's son were named Lakshmana, the soul of noble virtues, and Shatrughan, the destroyer of all enemies. As the four princes grew up, King Dashrath and the queens devoted all their time to the four boys. They gloried in their little pranks, enjoyed their lip sync talk, and answered all their inquisitive questions. There was peace and happiness like never before in the palace and in the kingdom. The king spent all his time and energy in teaching the boys and nurturing them with love and affection. They were educated in all the ways befitting a prince. They were encouraged to play in the gardens and in the palace. They played with one another and with all the birds and beasts on the palace ground. It was a blissful time. Under the watchful eyes of their father and their mother, they became young lads. The subject loved the four princes just as much as they loved their kind king. King Dashrath was an accomplished warrior of many skills. He was a skilled archer who could shoot at anything by just hearing the sounds it produced. So, he made a point to teach his sons how to become archers. The four boys were quick to learn, and soon they were as good as their father. The king's chest swelled with pride as he watched the four boys display their skills. By now, the four princes had nearly attained adolescence and were very skilled with their swords and their bows. The once childless King Dashrath was overjoyed with his four sons and their progress. He now felt that they were ready to pursue their formal education and become learned and wise. He knew that when they had gained knowledge, they would also know right and wrong in the glorious tradition of Raghu dynasty.